Obviously, it's with enormous sorrow that we acknowledge the death of the Queen, Queen Elizabeth II. Richard and I, His Excellency Dr. Davis, join with New Zealanders in mourning the loss of Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth, and we send our deepest condolences to her family, who I know will be grieving her death right now. For most New Zealanders, Queen Elizabeth has really been a constant in our lives. She's been here her whole time, and she's provided a sense of continuity and stability for us. So she's a real symbol of dedication to service, having served for more than 70 years. And I was so pleased that I got to meet her via Zoom, and I'd also met her twice in person prior to that, and was able to celebrate her Platinum Jubilee, which we had earlier this year in the United Kingdom. And that was a terrific celebration of her enormous contribution to the life of the Commonwealth countries in particular, but also all her realm countries, most especially. It was a great honour to witness people's deep love and gratitude for their monarch, Queen Elizabeth. I also had the chance, when I went the last time to the UK, which was in July, to meet with King Charles III. In fact, we had a very enjoyable full-hour meeting, and very, very interesting it was too. So His then Royal Highness the Prince of Wales is now the King of New Zealand. I will write immediately following the proclamation of his accession, which is a formality. He has already taken up the role of sovereign and monarch. But I will write on behalf of all New Zealanders after we've had this day to really digest the news of the Queen's death and to acknowledge her and give her family time to come together. It's obviously a huge blow to them and to the rest of us. I know that King Charles shares his mother's commitment to service and also a deep affection and regard for New Zealand and the people of New Zealand. He's been here many times. The Queen had been here 10 times, and I've lost count, but King Charles III has actually been here many more times than that. He's been here a great deal and takes a great and a very particular interest in what's happening here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I know that people are looking for some information around what is happening and what opportunities they might have to share and to show their grief and to pay their respects and condolences. And I might be able to shed a little bit of light on that here today. Just immediately following this, at 12:15, I'll be departing for Parliament. And at 12:30, the Prime Minister and I and His Excellency will be signing the condolence book at Parliament. There are 2 condolence books. One is in a public space, so people don't have to go through security, and one is inside in a secure space. So we will be signing the book inside, but there are condolences books that will be available once we've done that, so that'll be at 12:30. Also later on this afternoon, and I encourage people to do this, we will be, as a staff of Government House, myself and the staff here will be gathering at a tree to lay a wreath and flowers for Queen Elizabeth at a tree that she planted here many, many decades ago, and we'll be able to have a private ceremony there to acknowledge her passing. At 6 o'clock this evening, I will be joining the Chief of Defence Force, and they will be doing a gun salute down at the Wellington waterfront to acknowledge the Queen's death. That is a public event, so members of the public are free to attend. That noise is actually our very dear pug who's making a terrible racket. Luckily, the Queen was also a dog lover. Yes, she is rather amusing, I know. So at 6 o'clock this evening, I encourage people, Wellingtonians, to join us at the waterfront for the gun salute, which the Defence Force will be offering. There are also going to be opportunities for people to lay wreaths and flowers and cards. Pukeahu has been mentioned, and also Parliament. Both of those are public sites where people can leave messages for the Queen and for the royal family. And of course, we wouldn't be surprised if Government House front gates has a few too. So there are places. Also, I'm conscious that local government will make available venues where they will have condolence books, and they also will have places where people can lay tributes for the Queen and pay their respects for the royal family. There are a lot of things happening. I've said an awful lot, and you probably have some questions over the next few days, and I'm very happy to try my best to answer any questions that you have. But it is certainly my intention to try and keep New Zealanders informed about how things are unfolding and when we're likely to go and what is happening. So I'll leave it at that. So kia ora koutou katoa. I've moved on.
70 years as the Queen of New Zealand. What do you think the people here will remember her for?
I think they'll remember her for her service primarily. She worked right up until her death at 96 years old. So from the time she became a very young monarch right until her death, she worked in the service of people, and that was, I think, a reflection of her very deep commitment and belief in the notion of service. I think people will remember her as someone who was dignified, and also who was capable in her personal moments of great warmth and reflection. But I'm confident that New Zealanders, all New Zealanders, respect her as a person who was committed to the notion of Commonwealth, to the belief in the value of Commonwealth and Commonwealth countries, and also who cared deeply about her realm.
As you mentioned, she visited here 10 times.
More than 10, I think, yeah.
What are the images and pictures which come to your mind when you think back on those visits?
Well, I can remember actually meeting her at the South Pacific Festival of the Arts. I was in the kapahaka group that did the welcome. And I thought she was someone who had a real presence about her. And so she came along with the Duke of Edinburgh at that stage, and met most of us. And it was obviously a presence that everybody noticed and made a real difference to the venue. So there was that. She was rather small in stature, but big in presence. So.
Yeah, in the statement, you sort of spoke of her warmth and how she was able to put people at ease. What are some of your memories, and how was she in person, and what did you talk to her about?
Well, the last conversation was via Zoom, and I was very struck at how comfortable she seemed dealing with what is really quite an extraordinary new medium for someone in their 90s. And I think His Excellency, who is here with me today, would attest. He was present for the first part of that audience, and she was very able to put both of us at ease immediately and to engage away. I think the Palace released some footage of that, where she said, "Oh, there you are," and we, began chatting about New Zealand and how many Governors General she's met in her life, quite a few. And she's obviously interacted with people from all around the world over the last 70 years and more.
And what, I guess, sort of further plans are there? I understand that you'll be travelling to the United Kingdom. Can you tell us more about sort of those plans which are underway? Sure.
So there will be a funeral held for her in the UK, and we expect all of the royal family to attend that. And also, of course, heads of state from around the world, and especially from the realm countries and from Commonwealth countries. My expectation is, my understanding is that myself, as the Queen's representative, now the King's representative, will go on behalf of all New Zealanders, along with the Prime Minister. And we want to be there to pay our respects to her and also to the other heads of state who will be gathering. When I return, so that should happen around about Wednesday, we think. When I return, there is an official period of mourning, about 14 days, which starts today. Memorial service for her, and the public are free to come to that. So there will be a state memorial service on my return within that period after the UK service. So there will be an opportunity then for people to participate.
What advice did the Queen give to you in your role as Governor-General when you spoke with her?
She didn't really offer advice so much as reassurance that this was a continuation of noises happening today out there. It was really a sense of continuity and reassurance and acceptance, but also an interest. She had quite a lively interest in both myself and my previous career, and a lively interest in His Excellency, Dr. Davis. So, a very keen curiosity about what was happening in New Zealand and about ourselves who are now in this role. Can I just, yep.
While you're in the UK, are you expecting to meet with King Charles?
I think we would hope to. I feel very honoured with the fact that I have met him, and quite recently, and it was a very good meeting. And obviously all of the world will be there and trying to meet, but it would be something that we will ask the palace to facilitate if possible. It is quite normal for him to meet his Governors-General, so I would imagine that would be possible.
Would you like to meet with the Queen in person as Governor-General?
Would I like to?
Would you have liked to?
I didn't feel at all shortchanged because I met her and I had a very reasonable length audience with her, and I've had other forms of communications with her. I took the liberty of writing her in my own handwriting letters to update her Majesty. I thought she would appreciate not just an email but something personal and something quite traditional. So I have stayed in touch with her, and because I had met her already a couple of times, I certainly didn't feel in any way shortchanged or diminished by that, and she certainly in the interaction we had, gave me every confidence of her confidence.
Did you find out about the news you mentioned last night? You landed from Samoa, so it's been quite a whirlwind 24 hours for you too. How did you find out that the Queen had passed?
So I was woken not long after 5 o'clock this morning by my aide-de-camp, who had the unpleasant job of informing me of the Queen's death.
And what was your reaction?
I was contemplative, I think. So I knew she was aged, but had hoped she might be with us for longer. So we are prepared. We knew this moment was coming, and I'm grateful for the opportunity of celebrating her service and her long reign, having done that recently, and now is an opportunity to further acknowledge that, but also to now move to the new king when the proclamation is made, and to conduct a proper period of mourning for her. And most particularly, I'm very conscious, and we all know this, particularly those of us who are Māori or who have a long tradition from long traditions, like Celts, where we celebrate people's lives and mourn their passing, recognise the impact of this on their families in particular. And I'm very mindful of her family at this point in time, who are going through so much and who are gathering together now to mourn someone who's deeply beloved by them.
Logistically, is there some New Zealanders we've spoken to today have questioned whether there's a day of mourning for the monarch passing? Is that something that will facilitate, or is that, and also the passing of the King's birthday, where does that sit, I think?
Yeah, good question. So we have more than one day of mourning. Today is the first day and the main day, because we are now announcing the Queen's death and passing. We have 14 days of mourning for her, and there are things that are going to have to happen in order to, if you like, transition. So today is the public announcements, including the flying of the flags at half-mast, which will happen from tomorrow. There'll be a cabinet meeting and executive council with a proclamation ceremony. That proclamation ceremony will include the Herald Extraordinary and myself on the steps of Parliament. It is a very ancient ceremony, going back to proclaim the new king. During that period, the flags will be raised in celebration of the new king. It'll be the only period during the mourning period where the flags will not be at half-mast. Following that proclamation ceremony, the next day, the flags will return to half-mast to continue the period of mourning. And there will be, as I understand from the Prime Minister's conference this morning and the planning, there'll be a period when the House can, actually the speakers of the leaders of the various parties can pay their condolences and respects to the Queen. So Parliament will be able to acknowledge her passing. We will then leave. As I indicated, we're expecting around Thursday, the Prime Minister and myself and a small entourage will leave to go to the funeral in the United Nations as representatives on behalf of all of New Zealand. And she will be laying in state there, and we expect her funeral to be approximately 10 days' time. And we will attend that funeral in the UK. There will also be a 2-minute silence in New Zealand that will coincide with the memorial service which we will have for the Queen. And following that, the flags will return to full mast, and that will mark the end of the mourning period. And I'm really sorry, I can take one quick question from one of the... Oh, well, she hasn't got a question, that's fine. And I need to go to Parliament, so all the best, everyone. And thank you for helping get the message out about the importance of the Queen, her significance to our country, and our deep sadness at her passing. Kia ora mai tātou katoa.